Grant Shapps is the Energy and Net Zero Secretary. Good morning, Mr. Shapps.
Morning, morning.
Tell us about your policy. Tell us how it is going to make things better.
So essentially we've been in the position, like much of the world, where Putin's invasion's pushed up our energy costs. We've ended up having to pay about half of the typical energy bill this winter. It won't have felt like that to your viewers, to households, because the bills have been going up anyway. I want to make sure that we have complete energy security for this country, that we have energy independence, that we're powering Britain from Britain, that we are able to ensure that we bring energy bills down. And that is what this document today, Powering Up Britain, is all about.
So it's a document, but is there any new money?
Yes, there's quite a lot of money in there. Some has been mentioned before,
money?
But what we've done today is... yes, there's some new money in there as well. But what I was going to say, very importantly, particularly for the communities who might be listening to this, is we actually name the places that are going to be getting this money. So there's £20 billion, for example, going into something called carbon capture and storage. It's a brand new industry. It could be as big as oil and gas for this country. Now, communities who are going to benefit from that in the northwest and the northeast, they'll find out who they are today. Communities who will benefit from hydrogen, they'll find out new money going into things like setting up Great British Nuclear, which I want to ensure that we have nuclear power, providing more of our power because it's very reliable over a long, long period of time. So money going into that and many other things. There are over 70 announcements today.
You've given people a lot of incentives previously. For example, there were only 42,000 heat pumps installed last year. You've given people £5,000 off a new heat pump, but of the target 30,000 last year, only 10,000 people actually took up that money. You've tried the carrot hasn't worked. Now you're saying, some people are saying that it's about the stick, it's about forcing people to move towards net zero, which a lot of our viewers and listeners are very, very sceptical about.
Well, I think it's a transition over a period of time. We're moving towards an economy which uses electricity as its basis more and more. And as that transition takes place, there are lots and lots of different things that have to happen. But one of the problems with these discussions is you end up on one issue or one specific measure. But heat pumps, as you mentioned, is part of that. There's technical problems with heat pumps. You sometimes have to have bigger pipes. They've also been more expensive. So even after a government grant of £5,000, it hasn't been sufficiently cheap to fit them. However, the good news is there are now suppliers coming along, British Gas, Octopus, that means that after that £5,000, heat pumps can be £3,000, £2,500, which is about the same as fitting a boiler. So we're starting to see that price come into equilibrium.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Shapps. You've said in previous interviews that you're going to get a heat pump. Have you got one yet?
No, I've got the survey. The surveyor's coming in from the energy company, I think it's actually next week, certainly in April, to see whether my house is appropriate for it. And as I say, there's a combination of things here. You've got to make sure the insulation's right, the piping's right, and so it's not an instant solution for everyone, but I will find out whether it is for me, just as I drive an electric car and have had solar panels on my house for years and years. I don't do it because I'm an eco-warrior, I do it because it can cut energy bills, and I'm keen to do that.
In terms of where all the electricity is going to come from, where all this energy is going to come from, I mean, the last nuclear power station was approved in 1988. We've got a wealth of oil and gas in the North Sea. Labour don't want to explore new oil fields. Obviously, you're a Conservative. The SNP has a presumption against exploration. You've banned onshore wind farms. The Green Party, for example, has been campaigning against solar farms. Energy production, you're talking about energy security, but energy production is a massive, massive problem. And of course you'll argue that we need to reduce our reliance on gas, for example. But when is this country going to start producing more energy?
Well, yesterday we produced 70% of our energy either from renewables or from nuclear, the smaller amount of that 10% from nuclear. So we're already, on good days, producing vast amounts of our electricity from renewables and a bit of nuclear. Now, when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, that doesn't work, and that's why today I'm setting up Great British Nuclear and making sure that we can have new nuclear power. You mentioned it's many decades since we've invested.
When's that going to happen? I mean, it was 1988 since the last one. Sorry to interrupt you. It was 1988
If you let me answer your question, I'm going to tell you straight off the bat.
Go for it.
I've already put £700 million last November, into the next nuclear power station, actually the next but one. We've got Hinkley Point C, that's already under construction, so that is already being built. and Sizewell C, which is what I put £700 million into as a down payment in November. So it is now happening, but there are many other, in fact, even more exciting projects in a sense, like small modular reactors. It's a new form of nuclear technology, much smaller scale. We're backing that, and we're going to have a competition which will be over by this autumn to pick who's going to produce that. I'm here this morning actually at the UK Atomic Energy Authority where they're looking at fusion. Now, nuclear fusion, different to fission, that's our current nuclear program, could be the solution to very long-term, cheap and very, very affordable, plentiful energy. So I'm at a research centre looking at the very long term. So you've got the long term and you've got the short term money that we're already spending.
We have a lot of callers, texters and tweeters to this station, to TalkTV, Mr. Shapps, who really aren't convinced by net zero, who see it as a big assault on our way of life, on the economy and how things are done in this country. They also say often that, you know, we're 1% of the emissions globally, and even if we get to net zero, even if we get those emissions down, we're nonetheless in a situation where other countries who have far more emissions, and maybe we should you know, have things like import taxes on goods from China, for example, because of their huge carbon outputs. I just want to give you the opportunity to try to sell net zero to viewers and listeners of TalkTV. What should they know? What is your sell for net zero? Why do you think it's good for Britain, its economy and its people?
Yeah. Well, look, simply, we all know the science is beyond any kind of doubt. We all know that we do need to sort out the world. It doesn't do us any favours, or our children, our grandchildren. Sorry, say again?
Is the science beyond all doubt? It's absolutely a scientific consensus? You're 100% sure?
Yeah, yeah. I think that argument's about a 10-year-old, 12-year-old, 20-year-old argument. I think we do need to sort that out. But I agree with people. We shouldn't be going and sort of living a hair-shirt world and going back to living in caves. I want people to be able to go out and enjoy themselves, live their lives, grow the economy. And this country's done brilliant at that. We've managed to cut our carbon emissions more than any other developed nation and grow our economy at the same time. So this is a massive export opportunity for us. And people who say, look, aren't we just essentially importing that carbon from China? They may have a point, which is why one of the things that we've said today is we'll look at whether there ought to be carbon tax for importing that carbon. Is one of the measures. It's called a CBAM, a carbon border adjustment, that we'll look at. But the main thing I want to say to people is we can do this and produce massive new industries for us. Carbon capture. This is the idea that you can capture a ton of carbon and bury it under the North Sea, actually in the old oil and gas locations. That could be worth billions, even trillions of pounds to the UK, just like it was digging the oil and gas out in the first place. We can sell that space to the rest of the world and make ourselves well off as a result. Why would we not want to exploit that opportunity whilst actually helping to solve some of these climate change problems at the same time? It seems like a win-win to me.
I know you've got to go in a second, Mr. Shapps. I just want to very briefly ask you about two quick things. One, the gender row in schools, this Pulse Exchange report. You must be concerned by it.
I'm a dad, my kids are in school, I just want them to get a good education. That's what I want to happen. I know that the Education Secretary is likely to be coming forward with some plans, some guidance to the local education authorities on all of this. I reckon that most people watching your programme just want their kids to get a decent education, good maths, good English and all the rest of it. That is where this government is focused as well.
Labour is in Swindon today. Keir Starmer in South Swindon, a constituency they need to win to get a majority in the next election. They're saying they will freeze council tax. What do you make of that?
Look at what they've done whilst they've been in power. Not far to the west, in Wales, they put up council tax fourfold since they've been running Labour Wales. They're doing that all over the country. I can't imagine how they can even go out and claim that they cut council tax, given that Labour councils always seem to charge more than Conservative ones. So, yeah, I would take that with a pinch of salt.
OK, Grant Shapps, Energy and Net Zero Secretary, thank you very much indeed for joining us on TalkTV this morning. Really appreciate that.